Hey guys, it's Matt. Typically, the first big topic presented in any one of my videos dominates the comments, and I need your comments here. So let me just ask you right off the bat before I start this. For those that live in Canada, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, wherever you may be, at a higher latitude, have you ever in your life seen a pink aurora? We'll start with that. Have you, of course, you've seen the green. How much of the red have you noticed blend with the green, say, growing up as a kid? I've had people come to me from Norway. I'm not saying it's a Mandela effect, but these sorts of reality changes are on the table for me. I had somebody in Norway say they were never even partially red when I was a kid. It was just green. Has anybody, forget the red blending with the green, that's what's been presenting itself for the last several years. Maybe it's always been that way, but let's just stick with this pink or magenta. Has anybody that lives at a northern latitude ever seen a bright pink or magenta aurora? Please comment. This was recently sent to me regarding the southern lights, which I believe they call the aurora australis. I mean, just what is that all about? Always trying to give it like a genus and a species name. Person that sent this to me said no filters. They said this is the way it was captured. I don't see how this is possible, but anything's possible in a world that's melting down into a bizarro clown show. Regarding the auroras that have been seen over the last 3 or 4 days, mostly Friday night in the United States, most of the pictures taken around the world were primarily red, pink, and very magenta, of course. Now, when you go to look into it, here is the bullshit that they'll throw at you. Didn't spend a ton of time, but I saw some repeating themes, and the explanations, let's just say, are vague. Okay, I just screenshotted this one. This generally captures what they tell you what's happening. Oh, it's nitrogen. Didn't you know that, Matt? It's nitrogen. Don't make no sense to me. I'll show you. When it comes to the colors of the northern lights, this is caused by electrons in the solar radiation colliding with various molecules in the Earth's atmosphere. Red and green auroras are caused by oxygen molecules, and blue and pink magenta auroras are caused by nitrogen molecules. Well, does anybody see the class? Does anybody see the problem with this? The atmosphere is almost 80% nitrogen. So it's going to hit whatever electrons come off the solar storms is going to hit nitrogen primarily all the time. The atmosphere is close to, it's only low 20% oxygen. So all the green ones you guys remember for the last 40 years, that's caused by oxygen. Well, how is it avoiding the nitrogen? Did it put on a cloak of invisibility to avoid the nitrogen and just excite the oxygen? Don't make no sense. And without looking at 100 examples, the explanations tend to contradict themselves, guys, like this one. At this height, oxygen is less concentrated and is excited at a higher frequency or wavelength, making reds visible. Red auroras are often seen at the higher edges of the display. I don't even know what that last part means, so just throw that out. Oxygen is less concentrated. Well then, are you saying it's the nitrogen? Which that's not what it says. It's still the oxygen that's causing the aurora, but it's excited at a higher frequency. Well, what about all the nitrogen? This comment just completely ignores it. Have you noticed, guys, with reality itself, you can't get a straight answer on anything anymore. I've noticed this in everything I look into. Everything is all over the place and confused. I'm talking about even how to, recently I've noticed this, how to exactly apply refractory mortar to fire brick. The answers are all over the place. It doesn't make sense. There should be one way of doing it, known for about 80 years. Have you noticed this in general? Maybe I'm not sure if we'll talk about this again in this video, but I will talk about this in the future. Now, this collage of what the news media presents and these jackasses, they didn't get the memo, it seems. When they present a map, oh, how far down can the aurora be seen? It's always all green. They didn't get the memo. Well, it's not this anymore. Why are you presenting the old world? Why are you presenting the old reality? What's this all about? So they show, oh, can you see it or won't you be able to see it? How far is this green or the aurora, as they present it, going to creep down the United States like the angel of death crept by Moses' door with the lamb's blood? That's probably what's happening here. Not quite. But they didn't get the goddamn memo. Show it as pink and red. Oh, they will soon. As most of you know, I live outside Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, and I did not look for the aurora Friday night. I think it was raining most of the day, but that wasn't the reason. This is what they presented to us here. The map showed a possible aurora just to the bottom of Pennsylvania. So likely, Aurora, you have to be all the way up at the top of New York State, like where Buffalo is, and those poor bastards that live in that godforsaken place. And I thought it was okay. I think it did rain, but overall, I'm pretty sure I saw a map like this. I was like, sorry about the profanity. I was like, fuck it. I'm not going to go searching through the clouds and searching through the trees for this son of a beach just to get a little flicker of a damn light. F that. So okay, but here's the thing. Well, then all these headlines I don't know when I saw the headlines. Was it the same day, the next day? Aurora likely or was likely seen as far south as Alabama. So they got what was presented to me completely wrong, confused as always. You remember, the headline mostly in the U.S. was could potentially be seen. I don't know why they kept using Alabama, as far south as Alabama. Now, those people down there, they don't know what's going on in general. They've never seen the aurora. They don't even know what it is. Didn't even learn about it in sixth grade. That's when they graduate. It would have freaked those people the fuck out in Aurora Borealis because they don't know what's going on anyway down there. Okay, to avoid the ire of the bathroom boys, let's jump right into it now. The way I see it, there are only three possibilities here as to why the Aurora Borealis, with no past history of this, showed up pink and red all over the place, very little green, and the red has been creeping in. It's never been this pink, it's never been this magenta. Although, Matt, would you spend your weekends tracking the Aurora Borealis pictures from around the world? No, but in general, I think you'd agree. The red has been becoming a larger portion of what most people remember as emerald green, and I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. Pink, straight up magenta, purple, very little green. Okay, three possibilities. If I'm missing things that should be put on the table, let me know what I'm missing in the comments. Possibility number one, the official story is correct, and it is nitrogen. And you people, as usual, are seeing things that aren't there. And you people can find conspiracy in anything. And it's nitrogen and the electrons you see, as I said earlier, interacting with nitrogen. I'm sorry, maybe I am a dolt, dense, thick. It doesn't make any sense. If the atmosphere is 78% nitrogen, then every electron, solar storm, or whatever the heck is ejected from the fart of the sun would be interacting with the nitrogen every damn time. What am I missing? Possibility number two would probably be defended in the Billy Madison debate by a large portion of our truth research community. They would say, Matt, I'm sure you're going to go into like a reality breakdown place and fluid reality, but Matt, it's a physical phenomenon. You yourself, Matt, would admit to the tales of chemicals, the DuckTales, the Wright brothers caused all this shit initially, right? That stuff, this barium, strontium, aluminum, barium, strontium, aluminum, strontium, barium, all that. There's things in the air, Matt. You'd admit to that. Yes, if I was on trial, I admit to that. Absolutely. That shit that comes at 10:30, 11 o'clock in a clear blue sky, that ain't normal. I'm with you on that. However, what exactly is happening or how it's happening, I would disagree with this main group of truth researchers. I don't just, go back to the parroting of the barium, strontium, aluminum. Okay, we've talked about that before. That's not the point here. Possibility number three, and as you'll see, this is where I put my chips, it's a symptom, for the most part, of a reality that was once could be considered real evolving into the fake. Or even if you never considered it completely real or physical, it's becoming more fake or moving towards the digital, more towards the AI, away from the spiritual. It's a symptom, in my opinion, of a reality that's being terraform. That's not the right word because that implies very physical. In terraform, I don't know what other word, into the more fake, even more fake than it was 20 or 40 years ago. Now, I think this is more of a symptom. It could be a necessary ingredient in making that witch's brew more. Matt, that's where you put your cards. You're a madman. I come to the right place then. Hear me out. I'll try to keep the jokes to a minimum so this insane theory can be presented with a little bit of intelligence. Let's do it like Big Daddy from Django Unchained. So let me get this straight. These scientists over here, these respected members of the community, they tell you clearly what's happening with the Aurora Borealis, which has a very, honestly, easy to understand scientific explanation surrounding nitrogen. And you're going to come, you and your Jimmy, are going to come along over here, and you're going to talk about reality breakdown and terraforming and reality moving towards the digital and fluid and Mandela effect. You should be locked up. You should be ashamed of yourself. Okay, there's a basis for why I'm saying what I'm saying. I understand it's insane to anybody that stumbled upon this video looking for cats. I sat here for a few minutes and I thought, oh, the pressure's on. You're now being asked to explain, Matt, probably the most difficult thing to explain if somebody isn't already on board or sees reality the way we do. The most strangest thing in the world you're going to try to justify, the strangest thing of all time, which literally would be loony bin stuff to most people, and I'm going to try to make a degree of sense out of it. I need a few more minutes. I'll be right back. I had been focused on the emerald green, noticing that endless presentation for many years. It was Steffers, the blogger, that brought the magenta, its overuse and its artificial use to my attention, to our attention, say the middle of 2022. So after we started noticing it, after she started writing about it, I started making videos about it. Of course, then it became Pantone's color of the year for 2023. Here it's strange, just a side note, it's presented as Viva Magenta. The French is Viva la France, or it's Long Live France, V-I-V-E. So I looked up, what is this V-I-V-A? And it's almost hard to find a definition, but it's in some way related to the French V-I-V-E, and to show approval for something. So showing a support or approval. It's just weird because there's dictionaries that I don't even think have V-I-V-A as a standalone word. Anyway, whatever. That's Matt, that's the least of our creepy worries. True. So what we noticed is its overuse. And again, no real world could do this. The first grade truther, every single award show, every single Oscars or Grammys and commercial, and it's not just T-Mobile. We saw the magenta just literally all over the place. But of course, it was the secret societies making phone calls every single time. It just kind of flowed into through the download that the people take. It's not phone calls. It just was overused. The amount of magenta we saw was 1,000 times more than we'd seen, say, 5 to 10 years ago. Even in The Color from Outer Space, the movie about a magenta alien invasion with Nick Cage, he says, well, it's the original writing, I guess, is it Lovecraft? He says, I don't even know what the color was. Nick Cage says, I don't even reckon. He didn't even, yeah. I mean, well, yeah, it had existed, but it was never popular and never overused to a factor of 1 million, like it started being overused 2.5 years ago. So overused, again, we were frustrated with our friends and family. People should have said, why is this magenta all over the place? But even if they noticed it at all, it would be, well, it's just trendy. It's just, well, it's not just that. It is used. Now, again, we've talked about this in many different videos. I've used your comments and writings and things from Steffers, etc., to help build my understanding of what's happening. It's not just a symptom of where reality is going, heading down towards the digital. It's also used to, like in a loop, to create that situation. The creeps know in some way this color, it's like everyone says the whole reality is frequency and sound, in Genesis 1, the word, but also the frequency of color. The creeps know that this magenta in some way facilitates where they want to take reality. So it's a loop. They present magenta. Magenta is, again, it's not just called in. It's somehow everybody that was on the download kept choosing magenta. I get stories, I get emails every so many days, sometimes every day, that, Matt, I went to this museum and the whole first 5 rooms were all magenta. I'm still getting it. It's still overused by a factor of 1 million. So they use the magenta because, remember, if anybody's new here, real creative beings, real spiritual beings make this reality go. Without people, what that means, and we don't know exactly. We'll talk about it later. But without people like you and people like me, this reality doesn't exist. the Kabbalion, all is mind. No, all is real spiritual beings first. The creeps need the real spiritual beings to facilitate and to create the reality that they want. So yes, in a way they do push out the magenta. Matt, what does seeing magenta do for them? If I see the magenta, I don't know. I'll try to overhear that conversation in the next Eyes Wide Shut party. I don't know. But they do push it out, but it's not just phone calls. It's pushed out. It's almost like a download. A designer of a studio, just some small-time designer, a small studio where, I don't know, art projects are going to take place, will just kind of want to choose magenta. They didn't get a call from a secret society. Okay, step one was we noticed its overuse, and I don't know the right adjective. It was much, much more than overuse, and it still keeps coming. Then we looked into it. The whole backstory of it was beyond creepy. Part of it didn't make sense. Has no wavelength, they say. I don't want to repeat all the stuff we talked about over the last 2 years. Has no wavelength. Your mind, it's not really there. Your mind makes the color somehow. It's not in the Roy G. Biv light spectrum, but it's said to be the opposite of emerald green. Well, how can it be the opposite if it has no wavelength? All these strange anomalies started to come up. And is anybody surprised? That is just kind of what we would expect for, I don't know, a creepy tool that's in some way used to morph reality into the sick place they want it to go. So, okay, first the overuse, then we research it, and, nothing makes sense. Nothing. Even the way the inkjets, the reverse, how they build color in reverse with the cyan, yellow, and magenta, whatever. It was all creepy. Nobody's surprised. This is from the Eagles' I Can't Tell You Why still frame. This is the best representation of part 2 of what's happening with the magenta, or what we observed. I'll credit this to Jeff, who does a lot of research for us, who I've mentioned many times in the past. Jeff and I at least, are about 100% sure. It's very close to that. I guess it'd be ignorant to say 100. It's 99 point something. That the magenta that appears in many old videos did not exist. You might say 5 years ago, did not exist when the video was shot. The magenta lighting was not there in 1978 or whenever this was done. The magenta that appears in certain video today, it's flowed out of reality somehow. Did not exist. That sounds crazy to anybody that hasn't seen the types of things we've seen, but I don't know how to soften that to make it less crazy if you're relatively new. Again, this is the best example, but I mean, Jeff and I and others have been observing this for, I don't know, like it seems like years now, but it's probably only been about 2, where we are confident the magenta did not exist in the original video. Someone said, well, Matt, you're right, there was no magenta lighting, but once it made it on video and then it's an old video. No. I'm saying even if you, in 4 or 5 years ago, found an Eagles video, let's watch this video, how they recorded I Can't Tell You Why. I'm saying the old video that you would have seen on YouTube 5 years ago didn't have this. In this way, the magenta has invaded old video or digital. Now, is it an invasion or is it a symptom of something happening to reality itself? I think in this case, it's more of a symptom. It's not like an intelligence invading. I don't know. I don't know. All I'm telling you is I'm confident that this endless magenta that we see in old video, in some way, however you want to take this, did not exist. I can't find it in this particular video. I thought this was the one. It's been a while since Jeff sent it to me. Jeff has found like flashes, like micro flashes. It's not even a quarter second on screen of magenta in old videos. This is the inauguration of Woodrow Wilson. I thought this was the video, but there's several. I don't know. And do you want me spending 5 hours looking for a micro flash of magenta? You just have to trust that I saw it. And he sent me other things like this, where there is no color at all. There's no color initially in any of the filming, yet you get these little flashes of magenta, and Jeff would agree with me, or I would agree with him, that this is the same process going on. In some way, the magenta, you're not going to see it here, I know, but this is just an example. The magenta somehow invading reality or bleeding through reality in some way. So this is phase 2. So in very simple terms, there's no doubt about phase 1. We've seen the overuse of magenta times a million. I don't know how everybody doesn't notice that. That's a given. If that hasn't been apparent to your friends and family, well, we can't help them. I mean, it's just over the top. Okay, I am convinced phase 2, I agree, not everybody's going to be with me on that. This is a little nuts. I hear you. I'm very convinced that it is showing itself through old video and in other ways bleeding through reality. Not really prepared to dive into it, but the best way is through the old video. But there are other examples that are similar to this, but not as strong as that. So that's phase 2. Maybe there's a few other phases. But we've seen the magenta, basically, let's not make it more complicated than it is, become a larger part of this reality. Whether it's just all called in and used by corporations and T-Mobile, or you believe it's something else, the magenta is a bigger part of life, in those simple terms than it was 5 or 10 years ago. To me, the Aurora is just the next phase. That's just the way I see it. Well, Matt, how could a Pantone color of the year and something that would put in a curtain relate to the Aurora? I think that's how reality works. I think one is not that separate from the other. I think we're meant to believe it's separate. I think maybe on the day of our death, we'll go, wow, that's how it worked. We have no idea how this works. We're fooled by the senses. We believe things work the way they do when they don't. I mean, just because the senses take in 1% of the information and leave out 99%, that's just the way it is. I don't see that there would be a big difference between choosing a magenta curtain and the Aurora Borealis. That's insane to some people. It's not insane to people that have seen as much as you and I have seen. In some way, they're much more related than you would think. To me, this isn't a big deal. This is just the next phase. No, I don't think it just, I have to go back and knee-jerk the physical explanation of barium, strontium, aluminum. Matt, they put all that stuff in the air. So then when the electrons come in from the sun, it looks different. Okay, that's maybe. I'm sorry. What I've found is physical explanations don't work. They don't get you even anywhere close to understanding how this reality works. At this point, I'm always going to choose a metaphysical explanation or something along these lines. I'm not going to revert back to a physical explanation where every single time those sorts of explanations and understandings of how reality works have been explored in detail, the physical doesn't hold up because this place isn't very physical. It's mostly an illusion. So, guys, in discussing the last phase of this, we've talked about the magenta coming out of reality in some way as being a symptom of something, whether it pops into reality via the Aurora Borealis or there's a split second of it in an old video. I don't think there's much difference. I know that sounds crazy. I can't even reconcile that myself. But to me, unless as this evolves, we'll change our understanding, or my personal understanding, of course. But it's a symptom. It's used on the front end. It is used by the creeps to facilitate something, to help push in some way. But on the back end, if this makes any sense, it's like a symptom. So that's how I see the Aurora. And if anybody's saying, yeah, I should be clear on this, my understanding, and again, my guess at this point, we don't have all the answers, of course. But I think we're kind of looking in the right toy box versus where, well, most people, your friends and family, aren't looking at all. They just look up on the web. It's nitrogen. And that's the end of it. No more unless you're one of those people, there's no reason to keep discussing it. So it's a symptom of a reality sliding towards the digital. We've talked about that. Reality being, it's always been fluid in my opinion, but being a little bit more real in 1950, 1980, and being a little less real now, and continuing to get less real, whatever that means. And again, a symptom of a slow slide of reality. Some will say, Matt, it has nothing to do with maybe the digital or going towards the digital. It has to do with the morality, the debauchery, the clown show. Maybe it's all related. In terms of the concentric rings diagram, remember That diagram I need to, maybe I'll put it up now. If not, we'll do a whole video on it again as a refresher, because it has been the reality concentric rings diagram I put forth about 4 years ago. The evidence has come in, and I don't want to say confirmed it, but all the evidence, or everything we've observed, even everything in C, the V, 2020, and all that, kind of is evidence that it supports the structure of the concentric rings diagram as being somewhat accurate or very accurate. So the outer ring or screen is always trying to get in to your heart-centered reality, to where this reality is probably generated from, the heart center of real spiritual beings, of generator beings. The outer ring's always trying to get into the inner ring, which is you or me, with our own inner rings. And maybe another way of saying what we're talking about here, as the outer screen penetrates or makes inroads, or its trench keeps, they keep doing, it's trench warfare, and it keeps going a few inches towards you. That the yin and yang reality, right? There's always has to be a back end reaction wherever there's like an intrusion or an overstep. And again, these symptoms, these weird symptoms in reality pop up. And one of them to me is the magenta, where it's like the screen or the outer ring is getting too close, or invading too much into people's heart center. You and I might have armor to block it, but how many people around us have armor to block it? So if it can get to you in your heart-centered reality bubble, imagine anybody stumbling upon this video. Oh my God. If it can get to you, then it can use real beings to, like, again, bad word, but like terraform the reality, slide it down, like a lower hell realm, or slide it towards the digital. And when that happens, there are symptoms, in my opinion. And somebody's saying Mandela effect could be a symptom. Could be. Yeah, could be. This might be in some way related to that. Now, if anybody's saying, there's questions that nobody can answer. Again, these are just vague theories. Again, if the wrong person heard this, I'd be locked up. But I mean, if anybody said, well, Matt, what happens if next week there could be all sorts of aurora borealis through parts of Canada and Norway, and they're all green again? I don't know. I'm not saying because this has happened, now it's always going to be, every single aurora borealis is going to be 80% purple and magenta and pink. Why? Why does that have to be the case? If it goes back and we have 5 months of emerald green, does that mean everything I just said is completely wrong? Why does it, now that the aurora is this, it's always going to be this? Why? Next week it could be back to green. Again, does that mean that we're completely wrong here? Or no, I don't know. Maybe, it does incursions like an army. It does incursions and it falls back, maybe. Maybe it put out, it told CERN to go to 10 out of 10, and it sent its witches up on the hill, the 3 witches holding the eye, and maybe it did whatever it needed to do and said, let's see if we can really fuck with this reality, and we're going to create a damn aurora that's magenta. And maybe they threw all their best cards down for the aurora on Friday, and then it's kind of the way they work. I mean, it's when they did the big 2001 7-Eleven job application event, then it's like the way their creepy astrology seems to work, which I don't understand. But then they have to back off. They can't always go 10 out of 10. Now, I said this very early on, or months in during the 2020 C, the VME, whatever it was. Whatever it was. I said, they can't go 10. And I remember coming back a few months going, I can't believe they still are able to hold that dial to 10 out of 10. That's not the way they've worked in the past. They have to back off at some point. It's the way their creepy Saturn to Jupiter return astrology works. And they have to back off. They can't just, I don't think they're able to do another like C, the V, me, like now. They might be able to in 10 years or 15 years. Look what they did with the 2001 7-Eleven convenience store job application. That really confuses the bot. They were able to come forth with bullshit to kind of keep the story fresh. Well, not really, but the stories that they came forth with in the years following were such bullshit. Remember the shoe loser? His name was Richard Reed, the shoe loser, where he tried to He tried to light his Converses up he was on a flight, and that ridiculous stories like that. Then you had the edible underwear loser. I can't say it. I'll get some trouble. We need a hobo code for the B word. The edible underwear loser. And then all these, they were all cake and lake stories. Nothing happened. They didn't try to do it. They just, in a pathetic way, they just tried to keep people focused. So then they would want people to return with their consciousness back to the main event in September. And then that would help facilitate whatever they need to facilitate using real spiritual beings. They can't do it themselves in this reality. We know that. They cannot do it themselves. They need you, and they need me. And that actually leads, is it Charlie that sent me this? Let me get this image up because this is absolutely related to the last part of what we need to talk about. All right, I found the image. Here it is. It says he inserted the sign here, please don't feed the Magenta presentation. Like, please don't feed the ducks, that sort of thing. Now, I don't think he's talking just at me. Maybe he can clarify for us. But we have to at least keep this on the table. I don't think he's saying to me, Matt, the more you talk about it, the more you get the highest level of spiritual being focused on this Magenta. You're actually helping them. You're facilitating what they want to do with the reality by think about all the powerful beings right now thinking about Magenta. Okay, we've talked about this in the past. Are we being used? And I don't know how to reconcile this yet, but what are we supposed to do? There's something I want to talk about, or Steffers notices, but we can't say it to you guys because we don't want to feed it. See, okay, if we determine, whether it be next month or in 6 months or a year, that we are that critical, and we believe we are very important to them, and we have been used, the whole truth research community has been used more than any other group to facilitate what they want by controlling them, controllers and the powers that it all helps them. Of course it does. But if we are that essential, they're kind of in trouble. Because if we realize that we can just turn it off or do whatever, it's all up to us, then, again, this needs to be explored. I'm not going to make this video today because there's a chance that getting all these powerful beings focused on the Magenta in a way, or thinking about it now, helps them. See what I'm saying? What am I supposed to do? We're kind of at that point. We need to continue to talk about it, but at some point, if we are that essential, then we'll be able to, basically, I don't know, take the whole reality back, or do whatever we need to do. I mean, we'll at some point get a better handle on this very important point that he's making. And at first, when I saw this, I first think it's directed at me, but I'm not sure. It might just be, he might say, I didn't even think of it that way, Matt, but I see why you're interpreting it like that. It's like a sign for people on the side of the road taking pictures, don't feed the Magenta presentation. I don't know. I think this is very interesting what he put forth here, and maybe he can send me an email what his initial thought was, and did he even realize the stuff that or the way I'm interpreting it now? But you see that it's a quandary. But at this point, again, does it make sense for me not even to mention anything because we might be helping it out, or I don't know. I think if that's the case, it's the best news of all time. Even though we have, let's say, for the past 20 years, we've helped it. We've been essential in other words, all the 7-Eleven job application videos, the big day in September, it wanted those videos. The first grade truthers like, oh, they're scared of us because we're getting close. No, we've been played like a fiddle. They wanted all those videos. Well, why don't they want them now, Matt? Why do they have the censorship now? I don't know. I don't know. Because that gig was played. Now it's time to do the next gig. Like Basher said in Ocean's 11. You don't play the same gig. You play the new gig. I don't know. That gig was done. They wanted all those videos. Even about Captain, the Robin Williams movie, Hook. They wanted those videos. They're censored now. It doesn't mean they didn't want them. They absolutely wanted them. You don't think they could have censored them? Oh, they didn't have the technology. Oh, sure. Yeah. Of course they could have. They could have censored it then. They wanted it. for whatever reason, we could speculate that in 100 videos over the next month. Well, they needed to give that up, Matt. They had to lure us in to make us look bad in front of our friends and family, to knowing our friends and family would never come around, never be able to see it, to make us into the boy and girl that cried wolf. They need to marginalize They need to marginalize us for that 6 or 8 year period, giving a lot of truth away or allowing us to post videos about that, so then we can be seen as completely non-credible in the eyes of the people around us. That, and maybe they said we have to take this hit for the team. They said maybe. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. 100% they wanted us to make those videos. The fact that they're censoring them now, so be it. I'm 100% sure of this. Maybe you disagree. And in the debate of are we helping it or them to a degree by talking about it, again, for anybody new, one last time, real beings they're the engine behind this entire reality. And the highest level of them are people that are here. So that's why it pays a lot of attention to people like us, and we've fallen for its tricks and traps many times over the years. But, again, there's another aspect of this. Are we helping it out by talking about it? Because you get to that point where you say, well, again, am I here to fix society? Or are you going to do it again, aren't you? Yeah, are you going to do it? Are you here to worry about yourself? Are you here to worry? Are you here to fix and yourself, to do what you need to do so your spiritual whole can get it done and get out of here? Or you here to fix society and send the Hillary Clintons off to jail with the Anthony Wieners? Or are you here to worry about yourself and get it done for your spiritual aspect? So in a way, let's just say we are helping it a bit by talking about it. Let's just say, well, it doesn't affect us. We see through it. We've already acknowledged it has no effect on us, whatever is being done here. We completely have the armor up. So from our own perspective, it sounds a little selfish, but so what? If we talk about it, I am here not to fix society. The society exists in the form it does, actually as a wake-up tool. It gets worse to, the creeps probably in their own little role are degrading it, a lower hell realm. In a way, the reality is a gigantic wake-up tool. And as it gets worse, a few more people wake up. As it gets worse, a few more real spiritual beings snap out of it and go, okay, there's things I need to do for myself, so we get out of here. It's a wake. The whole reality is bigger than the creeps that run around in their magenta speedboats. It's a gigantic wake-up tool for beings like me and you. So again, I don't want to help it in any way, but it doesn't work on me. I'm here to do what I need to do for my higher self or spiritual whole. And is that, do I see myself as one with you? We're all eventually at some point distant down the future. One, you get into that, but am I one with the society? Or do I feel like I'm one entity sharing with society or this reality? Or no, we all feel we're completely separate from this place. So if we are helping it in a way by talking about the magenta, first of all, it's not hurting us. We know that. Does it matter? See what I'm saying? I don't, Matt, that's cold. Is it? This is a quandary, guys, but everybody would agree. Matt, for now, we have to talk about it. Can't just be quiet because it might be doing harm or damage to society and reality. If there's any way it could be doing harm or damage to me or to you or to anybody listening to this, if you're a real being and you've done your affirmations, and you say, this doesn't work, whatever's happening here, I'm not part of it, I'm not sliding with the reality, I'm off the ship of fools, I'm separate from it, then there's no way it can harm you. What does your inner knowing tell you? If you stare at a magenta, whatever, a sign, a magenta wall all day, is there any way it can harm you? Why? Because you say it can't. Well, it can't. Of course it can't. It harms those that fall for the trick. That's why it is always standing behind a trick. There's no trick when we see right through it. We don't know exactly what's going on, but we see it's just the next phase. And as usual, we don't go along with it. So, okay, now you're going in loops, Matt. Okay, whatever. So you understand, I'm going to err on the side of continuing to talk about it. And I don't know. I don't really know how to. Let me just summarize. It's a symptom of a slide, of reality sliding lower into a lower place, into a lower frequency. If the if the emerald green Aurora Borealis comes back over Norway next week and it's all emerald green and just a tiny bit red, I don't think that nullifies this presentation. Maybe they work in steps. Maybe they take one step forward or two steps forward and then just one back. Maybe the emerald green will return for a year. I don't know. It's certain, again, it doesn't change what I feel strongly about here. And it will continue to slide, and we're not, as usual, we're rowing away. We're in the lifeboat. We're not part of it. And it's a slide. It's a slide. The best way to talk about it is like a slide to a lower frequency or a vibration or a lower hell realm. It's always, but one aspect of that is a slide towards the digital, getting everything digital, where people wake up one day and they're in a digital environment potentially, and they don't even know they've gone in. And yeah, I hear you yelling at me. Well, that's our situation now, maybe, but now at least we realize that the situation we're in is not natural in any way. It doesn't. I don't think we're in any way trapped, or I got an email saying, Matt, this Magenta, and I think he's just joking. I guess that he can joke from time to time. This is scaring me. I don't think it's really scaring him. If it does scare anybody, it's why. There's no reason to. It's fascinating. Let the magenta, let the Aurora Borealis be not only magenta, form into a giant devil's head and talk to people over New York City. The whole Aurora is talking to the whole Northeast up to Newfoundland, wherever that is. It talks like like the way Voldemort appeared in the Goblet of Fire or whatever over the damn Quidditch tournament in Harry Potter. Let it. I'm fine. I wouldn't be scared. Like, oh, that's kind of what I thought the reality was. Talk to me again, Devilhead. It's the weirder it gets, the better it is for us. I'm not joking. There's no question about that. The weirder it gets, what I'm going to say, the best news for you of all time. Thanks for listening.